Hey guys, I'm Larisha Washington Johnson. I chose to do my case over the United States versus Price, which is also known as the Mississippi burning case, where in June of 1964, Cecil Ray Price, a sheriff's deputy, detained 3 civil rights workers, Michael Henry Schremer, James Earl Cheney, and Andrew Goodman, in Noshiba County Jail in Philadelphia, Mississippi. That night, Price released the 3 men from the custody of jail and drove them in his police cruiser down Highway 19 in Mississippi to an unpaved road where there Price and 17 other men, including both local citizens and members of the Philadelphia, Mississippi Police Department, then executed the 3 men and dumped their bodies in a construction site. All 18 defendants were subsequently arrested and were indicted by grand jury on January 15, 1965, for violating federal statutes. Although this happened in 1964, this case did not get argued until November 9th, 1965, and the decision was not made until March 28th of 1966. After being what you would call swept under the rug and ignored by the state, it was later picked up by the Supreme Court. Centering all of this was the federal government's duty to protect the citizens when the states neglect their responsibilities. Marshall and his efforts ensured that the accountability for these horrifying violations was attained. In Mississippi, the systematic racism was beyond evident, as the state's refusal to prosecute the guilty presented a moral crisis around the board. The question being, do you prioritize justice for the victims, the government, or do you respect the state's sovereignty? Notable justices that I chose to look into or find out their rulings in this case were Justice A. Fortas noted that private citizens can act under the color law where they are joining state officials and engaging in prohibited actions. Therefore, the color law indictments should have been reinstated against all the defendants, not merely the police officers, which was what brought this case to fruition again, to be looked at on a bigger scale. To him, the history of the Civil War, the racial violence, and the Ku Klux Klan and voter intimidation solidified his decision that the conspiracy statute was designed to read against the backdrop of the 14th Amendment, which is the amendment that was violated. We'll get to that here in a minute. Thurgood Marshall also just played a crucial role in seeking justice for the victims by asserting federal jurisdiction, highlighting what was the federal government's obligation to intervene when states had failed to uphold constitutional protections. So when it comes to what amendment was violated, like I said, it was the 14th Amendment, and it was said that the conspiracy violated the 14th Amendment rights of these 3 men or people by 1, releasing the victims from jail at night, 2, intercepting and assaulting and killing the victims, and 3, disposing of the victims' bodies. Making this a conspiracy whereby the 3 men were intercepted by 18 on 3, y'all, that's a lot, defendants, including a deputy sheriff, Price, noted the name, United States versus Price, Sheriff Rainey, and a patrolman named Willis of the Philadelphia, Mississippi Police Department. The purpose and intent of the release from custody and the interception, according to the charge, was to punish the 3 men. The defendants allegedly were I guess, willingly assaulting and shot and killed each three. The bodies of these victims were then transported by one of the defendants from an unpaved road to the vicinity of a construction site where they buried the bodies approximately 5 miles away from Philadelphia, Mississippi. So, I guess to explain a few things that I have brought up in my case, we're going to talk about what state sovereignty is. State sovereignty is when the state refers to the supreme authority of the state to govern itself and make decisions without external interference. What is color law? Color law in the United States Code is a term of law that describes and defines an action that has either a mere semblance of legal right or the pretense of right or the appearance of right, which adjusts and colors the law to the circumstance while the apparent or legal action itself is still very illegal. And just in case you were wondering, don't know, what is the 14th Amendment? The 14th Amendment is the United States guarantee to equal civil and legal rights of all people, which include due process, which prohibits states from depriving any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Equal protection, which prohibits states from denying any person equal protection of law. And disqualification of formal government officials, which disqualifies formal government officials from holding office if they took an oath to support the Constitution, but then betrayed it. The 14th Amendment was there ratified in 1868 as part of the Reconstruction Program to guarantee equal rights to Black citizens after the Civil War. The amendment was a response to Civil Rights Act, which some feared would be undone by future Congress. Therefore, a major provision of the 14th Amendment was made, which granted citizens to all persons born and naturalized in the United States, thereby granting citizenship to formerly enslaved people. So, after evaluating all this information, a lot that I did not even put in here because I'm already at 7 minutes, I feel that the right and ethical choice was made because it did directly address the immediate injustice and affirmed that the federal government's role in safeguarding the Constitution and its protections were upheld. I believe the Constitution, I'm sorry, I read that wrong, guys. I believe that the conclusion does remain unchanged and that Thurgood Marshall's leadership in this case is amplified by the moral courage and commitment of Abe Fortas. That was absolutely necessary in addressing systematic injustices and will be ensuring that the principles of equality and justice are prevailed. Marshall and Fortas' work not only helped to achieve justice, but it also strengthened the framework of future civil rights protections, as we've seen in many cases, such as my dear friend Sandra Bland. We had a couple of people that were killed in their homes. Just justice being served all across the board. George Floyd. If not for something of this nature happening, maybe we would never have the freedoms or justice that we have as a people today. So this case was also later turned into a film. If you're interested in watching it, it's a little old. It was, filmed around the time I was born in 1989. Oh, my bad, 1988 actually. I was born in 87. Oops. So look for it on Tubi. It's free. If you want to know more, or I guess be able to see in a visual context how these things happened, prevailed, and, learn something for yourself. Thank you for your time. I pray you have a blessed day. Later. Happy Christmas break, y'all.